Good afternoon, good evening, early afternoon, late afternoon, early evening to everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order on March 28th, 2023, and ask our city clerk to please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Present.
Commissioner Henderson?
Present.
Commissioner Smith?
Here.
Commissioner Wilson?
Present.
Mayor Bray?
Present. I'll ask Commissioner Smith to do the invocation, and then we'll remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Okay.
Father, we thank you for your grace and goodness. May your face continually shine upon us so that your ways may be known in our community. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and the first order of business that we have tonight is a proclamation to commemorate National Donate Life Month. And we have with us tonight Vanessa Dallas, who's the Family and Partnership Liaison with the Kentucky Organ Donor Affiliates. So Vanessa, you come up and I'll... All right, welcome everybody. So I have a proclamation to read. States, whereas the City of Paducah has become an official Donate Life Kentucky partner dedicated to raising awareness of the importance of organ, eye, and tissue donation, and whereas more than 100,000 men, women, and children in the United States currently need life-saving organ transplants, thousands of additional patients are in need of cornea and tissue transplants to restore vision and mobility. Every 10 minutes, a new name is added to the list of those in need, and 22 people die each day due to an organ not being available for transplant. And whereas organ, eye, and tissue donors leave an unforgettable mark on the lives of countless Americans, and their selfless acts inspire hope and moments of profound need. And whereas Paducah, as a Donate Life Kentucky partner, seeks to actively encourage members of our community to learn more about organ, eye, and tissue donation and sign up to save lives on the Kentucky State Donor Registry, DonateLifeKentucky.org, or National Registry, registerme.org, and to celebrate their potentially life-saving decision with family and friends. Now therefore, I, George Bray, Mayor of the City of Paducah, in recognition thereof, do hereby proclaim the month of April to be National Donate Life Month in our fair city, and extend appreciation to Donate Life Kentucky organization for honoring those who register to be donors for tomorrow, for remembering those who have been the donor heroes of yesterday, and for celebrating today the thousands of lives touched by the ultimate gift of life.
Thank you so much. Certainly.
Yeah.
I just want to share that the folks that I have with me here are my heroes, and they are the donors, families representing donors that have given the gift of life. I have Christina Elligood here, whose sister Nicole was able to give the gift of life, unfortunately, as a result of the Heath High School tragedy that we had several years ago. And I also have Leanne Balaguer and Brad Renfro, who you may know as the family of Zana Renfro, who was the city commissioner for many years and a McCracken County commissioner, who also has given the gift of life. And we are very appreciative of our heroes. So thank you, Mayor Bray. Appreciate it.
Great. Do we have take a picture?
Please. Get in the middle. Thank you, Beth. Thank you, sir.
Okay, let me give you this so you can,
So we can look official.
yeah, so we can protect it.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you. Thank you for being here. Good to see you. Thank you, Barry. Thanks for being here. Okay, we had a presentation scheduled for tonight, but I believe Mary Hammond, who was going to give a report from on the Paducah Convention and Visitors Bureau, is not feeling well. So we won't be doing that. And City Manager, are there any other additions or deletions to the agenda?
Mayor, none this evening.
Okay, so I got a couple things I wanted to chat about tonight before we got started in the regular agenda. And the first one was the proposed subdivision called Terrace Hills on Pecan Drive. And I know there was a lot of people here a couple of weeks ago talking about that subdivision. And I want to do my best to try to explain kind of where the city is and what our position is right now. The Planning and Zoning Commission is really formed to go through the process to make approvals. And since the city really already has subdivision regulations, the Planning Commission themselves has the legal authority to approve a proposed subdivision pursuant to Kentucky, a statute in Kentucky law. And also the City of Paducah is authorized to adopt subdivision regulations because of the adoption of our comprehensive plan. Subdivision regulations differ from zoning regulations. The Planning and Zoning Commission, really has hearings to allow for that commission to understand how the development will address utilities, roadways, dedications, traffic, and general conformance with subdivision regulations. And that also includes stormwater. If the subdivision plat meets all these regulations and adopted codes, policies, and addresses stormwater issues as we would expect them to do, then the Planning Commission is obligated to approve the plan unless there's some unsubstantiated finding of fact. Once the developer gets started, the city requires a performance bond to be placed, to be taken out prior to construction. And in the event the developer would default, and the city is required to come in and complete the project. So that is a very definite and important part of the process. There is case law out there that really supports that if the subdivision plat conforms with zoning regulations and subdivision regulations, it should be approved. And so I guess my final thought, is that really the Planning Commission is the agent of the city in these matters. And as prescribed by statute, the Planning and Zoning Commission advertised and held a public hearing prior to rendering any decision on either to approve or disapprove the preliminary development plan. Any changes to policy in terms of approvals, the way that happens is it goes through a codification process. So if you attend City Commission meetings from time to time, you'll see Planning and Zoning make changes to the code from time to time, and that really is the process that the commission is involved in setting the tone for the Planning and Zoning Commission. So where we are right now is the developer is in the planning stages for that development. And they have performed everything that they've been asked to at this point. And so really it's up to them to meet the requirements that planning and zoning and the city has established for them in order to complete the project. And so that's, it's complicated. A lot of people think that a project like this comes to the city commission either for approval or either for, for some sort of disapproval if people don't like it, and that is not the process that we go through. So I wanted to try to make that as clear as I could. Some of our commissioners may have questions about it. If you do, let me hear.
Questions?
I don't have any questions.
Okay. Anything to add,
Mayor, I was
City
just
Manager?
going to mention, as you explained that, we are going to take the opportunity through our team to help educate the community better on that aspect. We've been developing some information that'll be in the near future up on the website so the public can hopefully better understand that process. And so hopefully that will be informative and educational and kind of see how that process and how all the parts and the pieces come together of that puzzle and where, the opportunities lie for the public engagement.
I would like to say one thing, and that is that this is very different. I mean, I guess for years there hasn't really been a lot of development, and I guess with everything it's good news, bad news kind of a thing. But I guess, good news is the city is growing, and so these are problems or challenges that come with it. So got to keep that in
We've got
mind.
three or four or five developments going on all at the same time, and people looking. So that's a good thing.
It's rare.
So.
And I guess the bad news would be that the folk out there are just going to have to deal with it, right? There's no other recourse. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? It's done. We followed all the rules, regulations. So in reality, even though the residents came and expressed their concerns, nothing is going to change. That's what I'm hearing being said.
That's correct.
Okay.
The Planning Commission had the authority to do
Right.
that.
Right. Not us, but whoever had the authority is done.
From the preliminary.
And that's not always exciting news, and it's certainly not exciting news for the residents who live out there and who came and expressed their concerns, but it is done, and that's all point I'm trying to make.
Yes. Any other comments? Okay, the next discussion I want to take on a little bit was, I know the county, the fiscal court last night had some comments about needing a new roof for the convention center, and I'm not really prepared to go in real deep on this because I think there's a lot of water under the bridge, a lot of practices that have taken place for many, many years. Going back to 2001, so there's 22 years ago when we first got started with this whole thing. So we continue to research the history around the convention center and to make sure that we're all synced up on some kind of go-forward plan. So we'll continue to work on that. But I will make a couple of comments. First of all, the roof's been leaking for a couple of years. And it really, I have to say, we're late. We're late in getting the roof repaired. And, a lot of water under the bridge here. Costs have gone up because of COVID. So I think, one of the things I hope that comes out of this whole process, however we go forward, is that we get on top of the capital improvements that we need to make for an important asset that we have for our community.
You know, there's some history here. I mentioned 2001. There's been some, some capital improvements made. As late as 2017, there was a capital improvement made, and when that capital improvement was made, we used the 2% transient room tax that has come into question to pay for those improvements. And really, our position is that 2% fund was established to support debt for capital improvements. And capital improvements are critical to an asset, to a resource like the convention center. At the very least, I would say that stopping that practice now is really a change in direction, and really not collaborative, and really not beneficial to a positive city-county relationship. So from our perspective, we're going to continue to take a look at it, and I know that as late as today, our city manager and the deputy judge executive had a conversation about moving forward with an interlocal agreement for the roof, and our anticipation is the 2% transient room tax, will pay for that. Will pay for that roof. There was something suggested by at least a couple people from the county last night that the city should or would pay back some of a portion of that roof. That's never taken place in the past. It's not been the practice, and so we'll evaluate that and really all of this going forward. But today, that's kind of where we sit. So, and I don't know, anything to add from city manager's standpoint? I know we spent some time looking at this today. We got a lot more work to do on it, I think.
No, Mayor, just one point of clarification that in relationship to a conversation that I had, that was actually through legal representation it wasn't directly between the deputy.
Okay.
And
I stand corrected.
Yeah, my apologies for not being clear on that earlier, but I do think it points out that all of our intentions from the city standpoint, from the county standpoint, is what's the best for our whole, for the community, whether it be city residents, whether it be those county residents that don't live within the city, for our region as a whole, and how do we work together collaboratively to do that? Now, how we get to that point, the devil is often in the details, but I think we're all working in the same way. It's just the difference of getting there. And so I'm encouraged to have received that call this afternoon, encouraged to see how we can continue to work together. And then as you talk about that statute that authorized that 2% to go into that, the state legislature did put that in place. That is a user fee. The majority of that money that's collected is from people that are not residents of the city of Paducah or the county of McCracken. They are visitors to our community. And so those are not city dollars. They're not county dollars. They are user fees shared and collected by our hotel establishments for the benefit of such projects like that. And so I think we just need to be mindful that we're not talking about city dollars or county dollars. We're talking about project dollars as it was envisioned by the state statute, although it did authorize in that state statute for that 2% to be taken on and implemented by vote of the fiscal court. Similar to that, the statute also allows the city to implement a transient room tax of its own. But I am encouraged by the dialogue that was started this afternoon.
So Mayor, where does that leave it now as far as, I know Michelle's here and some others, are they moving forward with getting the bid on the roof?
My thinking is that everything is moving forward, that we're working on I know the judge told me last week that he's gotten some bids, and I think it's going to be somewhere in the $2 million range, I think is what, my understanding. The city will have quite a bit of responsibility in that because some of that is owned solely by us, and that will be our responsibility, so that's an issue that we will have to deal with. So that's not an issue from our standpoint, but I think we're moving
But
forward.
it is moving forward. I just wanted to let them know that.
Portion of the convention center that's owned by city is really what was formerly the JR's Lounge, right?
The show.
So just
And the
to
showroom.
make sure it's not just what people think is a traditional convention center, it's not, it's a city-county thing, but that other
Right.
part, the showroom is city-owned.
Have we established that once we move forward, how long it will take to get things completed? Has that been established, or is that something that we're still working at?
I don't know, have you heard, Michelle?
If we can get an RFP out, if it's back, we're looking at June, July at the earliest,
Okay, that's a good thing.
which is great for our season. That's our slow time. It wouldn't interfere with our operations. Anything after July will definitely interfere with operations.
Okay.
We do have a couple of events coming up, that are pretty important to the city. The Quilt Show, the annual Quilt Show, is in April, and then in May, we have this ECA conference, people coming from all over the country. 250, 200 or 300 people coming, and the convention center is going to be used. So we are making some repairs, right? My understanding is there's some...
We can't really do any interior repairs until the roof is fixed. So we're on hold.
But there's some roof repairs, right? That,
They have stabilized it, so.
yeah, okay.
yes.
Anything else? Questions?
No, so I'm good, thank you.
Okay. So the last thing I just wanted to mention, there's also, I think the judge brought up some frustration maybe with, a stage that the county owns that's used for city and county events. And, the county owns a stage. They bought a stage. They own it. They charge rent for it. And we've had kind of a handshake deal, I think, in the past for city employees to help put that stage up, particularly for city events, city-sponsored events, one of which, of course, is the Lowertown Arts and Music Festival that's coming up. So some things have happened. City's taken a look at some of our risk profile. We've had quite a bit of, we've been working on reducing our workers' compensation claims and looking also at the liability around erecting stages and lawsuits that come after it. So we have decided not to use city employees to erect the stage, but instead to contract out that labor. So, I explained that to the judge this week. It is a change from what we did in the past, but that's the reason for the changes. I mean, COVID brought on a lot of changes. We have fewer employees in some of our departments. You take employees off the job and work a half a day. You take them out of different departments. You work a half day putting up a stage. It kind of interrupts rhythm, and so there's just a lot of reasons that we thought through in making that decision. So that's kind of where we are. That's how we made that decision, and that's been communicated. Anything to add? Did I do okay on that explanation?
Yep, very well, thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anybody on any of this stuff? Okay, then we'll move to the consent agenda. Items on the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the Board of Commissioners and will be enacted by one motion and one vote. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. The city clerk will read the items recommended for approval unless any commissioner would like an item removed for separate discussion.
No?
Okay, so I'll ask the city clerk to go ahead and read the items recommended for approval, please.
Approve minutes for the March 10th and 14th, 2023 Board of Commissioners meetings. Receive and file documents, personnel actions, appointment of Kathy Montgomery to the Civic Beautification Board to replace John Park, who resigned. This term shall expire July 1, 2027. Municipal order authorizing the application for a crumb rubber grant in the amount of $48,419 from the Kentucky Department of Environmental Protection for a poured-in-place playground surfacing at Coleman Park and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same. A municipal order authorizing the purchase of a Cisco HyperFlex virtualization hardware from Trace 3 LLC in an amount not to exceed $250,000 and authorizing the mayor to execute all documents related to same.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, we have 3 municipal orders tonight. The first one has to do with the dog park, and I'll ask the city clerk to please go ahead and read it, and then and then Amy and Jeff will come up and tell us about it.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Approving the Relocation of the Dog Parks in Stuart Nelson Park to the Anna Bomber Site in Noble Park."
So moved.
Second.
Good
Amy?
evening. So I'm going to do just a very brief introduction and then let Jeff take it away. He's going to kind of go through the process and give you guys some pros and cons. So February 28th, we came to you with 4 potential sites in Noble Park for the relocation of the dog park that is currently located at Stuart Nelson. And that night, we were able to narrow it down to 2 sites that we were really interested in looking at. We met later that next week on site and walked through the 2 potential sites, and we actually picked a different site that was more, just everybody was more favorable at that site. So I followed up that meeting with Jeff and Kenny McDaniel from BFW, and they looked at both sites that we had talked about, and they have come up with a list of pros and cons. So with that, I'm going to let Jeff take over.
Thank you, Amy. Mayor, City Manager, Commissioners, thank you again for allowing me to be in my second home, it feels like. Told my son I had to do this. He's like, of course you do, again.
Should be the PowerPoint at the bottom.
Okay, there it is. All right. So Amy gave you a little bit of a background and we can skip actually my first few slides here because I was going to kind of walk through that. Again, came to you a month ago with 4 sites in Noble Park. We examined, narrowed it down to 2. We developed this third option of this. I'm calling it Site 2.1, just because I didn't know what else to call it. That is near Site number 2 that we presented earlier in the Anna Bomber part of the park. So those are the 2 sites that we studied more in depth. Get that big red arrow off there. This drawing here that you see represents the 2 areas, 2.1 with a rough idea of the size of the existing dog parks. Right now, the smaller dog park is approximately 27,500 square feet. The larger dog park is approximately 67,500 square feet for a total of 95,000, give or take, square feet. And so what you see represented on the drawings there is the existing dog park at Stuart Nelson, and then the same size areas in these 2 sites that we studied. So just kind of some pros and cons, just reminders of the existing site. I presented this information a month ago, just a reminder of the amenities that are there, and as part of the interlocal agreement, this is a like-for-like replacement. So what we currently have at the existing dog park is what the interlocal agreement covers as a part of the sports complex project cost for new facilities for a dog park. I'll just skip through some of these pictures of the existing site. May have gone too far. Okay, so site 2.1 is the site we studied previously was the field to the left here of, I don't know if the arrow is going to show up or not. No, it's not. But to the left of the green space there on the drawing, that site was not deemed to be the best location. So Amy approached us with this other site that is to the right of this, moving east on the site towards the back of the amphitheater. And so we went out and studied this site in a little more detail, Kenny McDaniel and myself. We did visit the site after the heavy rains that we had, because we felt like that was very important. In fact, Saturday morning, my wife and I were out, and I just said, hey, I need to go drive through somewhere real quick, and she was agreeable to that. And so we went and just kind of noted where the large puddles were. You can kind of see one on this bottom right photo. You see a little bit of a puddle there about midway up in that photo. So we know there's a little bit of grading work that needs to be done, but there are trees on the site. And so the pros of this site, it is in the general location of the Parks Master Plan from 2020 for relocation of the dog park. There's limited competition for parking. This is an underutilized area of the park. So there is space for parking, and there's not a lot of other things that compete for that, as in some of the other sites that we looked at. There is a combination of natural shade with trees that are in the area, plus open running room. Some of the other sites we looked at had plentiful trees, but not a lot of open running room for dogs, and created some sightline issues. There's little interaction with waterfowl populations. I know this was one of the things we looked at, I think was site 3 near the lake. Dogs and waterfowl don't always mix well, although there was some hope that the dogs could help control some of that population. But there's less conflict here. Power and water are adjacent on two sides of this area, the Anna Balmer building and the old baseball field entry, so there is water and power in the vicinity. It's at least as large as the current dog park, and I think, given some the way we lay the fence out, we can probably gain a little space here as well. There are 2 access points, one near the amphitheater entrance, and then one coming out behind the existing basketball courts near the skate park. And then there are some room for some additional improvements, some potential direct greenway trail access, dedicated restrooms, and expanded parking in this area. So those were some of the pros that we identified. Some of the cons is the area is wet, but can be corrected with some minimal grading, and we don't anticipate disturbing the tree canopy in that area with that grading as we would on some other sites. We would have to relocate the existing Eagle Scout horseshoe pit that's out there on kind of towards the amphitheater and that pavilion that's on that end toward the swimming pool. But I think, according to Amy, that's underutilized and could be better served in a different location. There are no permanent restrooms in this facility, but again, reminder, there are no permanent restrooms at the existing dog park. But I think we have a potential of adding some in the future if that was deemed to be appropriate. Parking would be needed. There are some, you can see in this photograph on the upper portion of the slide, there is some parking available, very similar to what is at Stuart Nelson Park now, but we would probably need to add a little bit with some gravel parking or something like that. And we know accessible parking spaces would be needed, and so we're taking that into account as well. One of the cons is the Anna Balmer building that's back there. This would probably restrict some of that use. It doesn't negate the use of it by the community, but it may restrict that. And I think we would just have to get Amy to look at past rental activity for that building and all that. We could relocate the shelters from the existing dog park or include 2 new shelters so that we have a like for like with what's existing, because there are no shelters specifically in this area, and there's currently no paved parking, so we would need to add that at least for the accessible spaces to make those truly accessible. So those are the cons of Site 2.1. Site number 4, this is one we looked at earlier. We just wanted to give a deeper look at it and get Kenny's input from a civil standpoint. This does have proximity to restrooms, and this is on the east side of the lake between the playground and where the pickleball courts are slated to be constructed. And I did add, and I didn't mention this, the blue square you see here above the tennis courts, that is the general location of the pickleball courts to be built. So I added that for context because we didn't have that last time. So again, the pros are proximity to restrooms. They're near the tennis courts and the playground. There's natural shade in most of the areas. There is paved parking. There's 10 directly adjacent and 28 shared with neighboring shelters. There's power available. There's existing shelters that could be included in that. But once you start including those shelters in the dog park, you're pulling those shelters offline from rental capabilities in all likelihood. Some of the cons are competition for parking during rented shelter activities and active playground days. Saturday, when we drove through the park, was a particularly active playground day because it was just an absolutely great day outside. The area outside of the closest 1.5 acres, once you start to get further away from the parking lot here, moving east, it gets lower and wetter, and so water stands, and so significant grading might be needed and could be at a significant effect to the trees in that area. This area does drain to the lake, while the other area drains to the creek, which drains out under the flood wall and on out to the river. This would drain to the lake, and waste that's generated in the dog park, I'm just trying to think of a nice way to say all that, would eventually make its way toward the lake at a detriment to the lake. The Paducah Power Christmas lights, 5Ks, other events that take place in the park, access could be limited to the dog park during those times. This is on the loop road. When the loop road is closed for running events, there will be no access to the dog park from a parking standpoint. Water will have to be run to the site, and there's possibly too much shade in this area, which sounds like an oxymoron, but too much shade affects the grass growing capabilities, and with dogs and people on this, we need sunlight to help maintain a good stand of grass. So those were the pros and cons of each of the sites. There are some general concerns, and again, this gets back in with turf maintenance. The dog park is a social place, and the wear and tear on the grass area needs to be considered. And then waste management. Kenny sent me a fascinating article on dog waste that's generated each year in the United States. And I won't share stats, but it's
Astounding.
astounding, yes. So that's just something we need to be aware of, and possibly even add additional bag dispensers and waste receptacles for that, and encourage folks to pick up after their animals. Their dogs specifically. So our recommendation as a design team, after examining both sites from a site perspective, civil engineering perspective, discussions with city staff, is site option 2.1. They're just to the east of the field at Anna Balmer area of the park. And our next steps would be a potential survey of this location to include topography and site utilities, just to make sure that we grade it properly and that we know what's on the site. We don't know that this will be necessary, but we just want to include that as a potential step. After talking with Kenny, we recommend improvements to the existing access road. The road will need some upgrades. It is narrow, and and so we're going to work with, and I think Kenny's already had some initial discussions with Mr. Murphy on that, as far as what he would like to see there. After those discussions, we would complete design and construction documents for approval and bidding, And then our plan is to open the new dog park prior to closure of the existing dog park. That is our goal. That is what is, honestly, what is necessary, so that this community is not without a dog park, even for a day. So that is what we anticipate our next steps being. With that, I would be happy to entertain any questions.
You mentioned at the Anna Bomber building, not having permanent restrooms, but I thought there are restrooms inside the building.
I think there are restrooms there. I think it's to what, if the building is still rented as a park space to the community, those restrooms would likely not be available to dog park users just because it's a rental facility. So I think, and Amy, if you want to
Yeah, I think
address
it's
that.
just a matter of deciding whether or not we're going to leave that on the inventory for rentals, or if we're going to utilize that space as part of the dog park. If we utilize it, then yes, we have 2 restrooms in that facility that could be utilized for this purpose. If we're going to continue to offer rentals, then it's like Jeff said, you're going to have that conflict of user groups. Now, when it's not rented, it would absolutely be available to be opened for that purpose. But if it is rented, then you would have that conflict.
So do you know about how many rentals that you have in that building annually?
We do. It's about 70 annually. And it's only open from April to November.
That's a lot.
So when we were there looking at that, it wasn't really, I didn't visualize it as wrapping around the building that would prohibit it from being used by a family for a rental while it was part of the dog park. So do you not visualize it? You could still rent it to a family?
I think that there's still some work to be done in the actual layout of how it works. The typical rental of that facility is like family reunions, so you would probably have issues with parking. But I do think there's an opportunity there. It just depends on how we lay it out on this space.
So you could do both. You could
It's possible.
leave it for some family rental. I mean, some families may not want it if it's that close to the dog park, but if they're used to having it there, they may be okay with it.
Yeah, it's possible. It's definitely something that we could look at as we move forward through the design.
You know, to me, that's the only limiting factor, I think, for this site. And, you know, there ought to be a way that we got to deal with parking and figure out how to do that, but I don't know. I mean,
And it's not the only building. I mean, we do have the Arts and Crafts building, which is similar in size. It has a large shelter right next to it. So it's possible that we could move some of those or relocate some of those rentals to a similar facility in the park. And then we also have a couple of large shelters that could accommodate these larger groups. I think that the attractiveness of this site is it's down, it's often away from everything, and so it's very private, and people like that. They can spread out. But we could potentially still offer them that with the Arts and Crafts building as well.
You mentioned that about the turf maintenance. Wouldn't that be the same at any site, Billy? Okay, it's not just by the
General
pickleball.
comments about both sites, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and we had that problem at Stuart Nelson, and we only have 7 trees inside the parks there. We had to go back and put irrigation in because the grass was just dying and we couldn't keep it. But once we added the irrigation, we've been able to maintain the grass out there. So we would be looking at something similar probably for this site if we couldn't get the drainage.
I mean, it seemed like a good spot to me. The other one actually just seemed, it doesn't look as close to the pickleball courts and some of the other things when you look at it on a map, but when you're standing there, it seemed close to it and to a lot of other things that I think it would cause some more problems in the park. I hadn't even thought about Christmas in the park, but absolutely that would be a problem.
Yeah, I didn't either. Kenny brought that up on site, and it never occurred to me that could be a conflict. And I think, one of the concerns that I personally had initially with this site, 2.1, is that it is secluded. But we know that when you activate that space, there's safety in that. There's, there'll be people back there. The dog park is highly, highly used. And I think this just adds life to a part of the park that needs it. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our dog park users who just, Ms. Davis especially has been instrumental in helping us understand the needs of the dog park and what what they would like to see, and just, so thank y'all. Thank y'all.
Well, I appreciate Amy and city manager and all of us allowing the commission to get involved, and go out and look at the sites and kind of have the eyes of the community a little bit as well. So I think we're arriving at a good decision, the best decision, and we'll, no location's going to be perfect, so we'll just have to figure it out.
And we'll, as we get, once the commission approves us to move forward on this, we will get more detail with the drawings and how if it wraps around the building, if it needs to. We don't know exactly yet without measured drawings where the fence lines will actually be, but we'll try to maximize the space, but minimize the effect on that whole part of the site, so.
That'd be great. It was pouring down rain the day we were there too.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
We got to see it wet. Yeah, we got to see it wet.
Thanks for not inviting me. I appreciate that.
So do you have anything, what's the process here?
So if you are in agreement, then we just need a motion to authorize to move forward with this site location to do the next steps.
So moved.
Second. Second.
Has it been read?
What I read was a municipal order approved the relocation of dog park to the Anna Bomber site.
Okay.
So,
All right, so you needed this.
So are we voting
need a
on
roll.
the municipal order? Okay.
I just need a roll call if we're
Okay.
ready. Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye.
You'll hear from me again, and then you will hear from me again in a minute. So this is an update on the Paducah-McCracken County Athletic Complex. This is the exact same update, if I say everything the same as I did last night, that we presented to the fiscal court in a workshop at 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon. Just wanted to give everybody kind of a status of where we are. I'm going to give a brief overview of how we got here, very brief, because I know most of you lived through that with us. So, we started, just a reminder of our project team, and this has just been a joy. It sounds fake to say that, but it's been a fun team to work with. Owners, SFC, Kevin Green, I'm going to thank you for all your work on this as well. So we've got a great project team. Just a reminder of our project principles, to become a regional destination for athletic tournament play, to provide a high-quality athletic experience for the local community. Those two things are absolutely crucial in this project. And these principles were developed at our initial meetings with the Sports Tourism Commission. This has driven everything we've done from a design team standpoint. And then principle 3 is to further develop the unique brand and identity of Paducah and McCracken County. So again, those things have driven everything we have done to this point. Our first step was just to land on a site. We analyzed 5 different sites. The Bluegrass Downs site quickly rose to the top and was approved by the Sports Tourism Commission as the site to be selected. Stuart Nelson Park came into the mix by agreement from the city to include that as a part of this complex. And Stuart Nelson Park, as a reminder, in this Parks Master Plan of 2020 had several things that were suggested for development and reworking Stuart Nelson Park to improve that park to make it work better for the community. And so that we took into account the Parks Master Plan in the design process for Stuart Nelson Park as we went forward. Our design team completed a schematic design phase through 2.5 years ago now. And went through just some test fits, trying to figure out how many fields we needed, what amenities we needed, looking at the unique nature of our community, the river industry, the arts industry, and that we have here, the how important food is in our community, the uniqueness of the Stuart Nelson site through its history and cultural significance in our community, but also Dr. Nelson's significance not only locally but internationally, and then the Bluegrass Downs site as a former horse racing track, and just the uniqueness that brings to it. So everything we did in this master plan schematic design phase was through that lens, keeping in mind our project principles. Our third step, and this is what everybody sees, and this is what everybody thinks is getting built, and generally it is, but it's different now. This was the master plan concept that was released on February 5th of 2021, over 2 years ago. That hurts to think about, that its time has passed that quickly. But this is what the community remembers. We were approved to move into a design phase and construction document phase, I think last year, from the Sports Tourism Commission. Our first step in that process was to work with the recently hired sports facilities company that was hired by the Sports Tourism Commission to reconfirm the program. We did everything through a lens of conceptual, what we thought is our parks and rec and athletic complex consultant at the time, who was part of the original team, working with him. But once SFC came on, who is the operator manager of this facility now, they viewed it through a different lens. And so we went through a program confirmation phase, looking at the numbers of fields, types of fields, sizes of fields, the number and types of amenities that enhance the user experience for this complex. And that program confirmation process led us to revisit the schematic design. And so what you see here is generally the same as what you saw earlier. There are a reduced number of total fields. If you recall on the master plan concept from 2 slides previous, we had 6 rectangular fields and 7 diamond fields. But what that was accounting for was single-use fields. The rectangular fields were for soccer only and any rectangular field sport, football, rugby, lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, whatever you could play on a rectangular field, that's the only thing that would be played on that. And the diamond fields were only diamond field sports, softball, baseball. SFC suggested we enlarge the fields and make them multi-purpose. So now what you see is on each of the rectangular fields are the ability to hold 2 diamond field games, softball or baseball. So now we have gone from we've added essentially 8 diamond fields on the Stuart Nelson Park side, not to mention the 4 or the 5 rectangular fields. On the diamond fields on the Bluegrass Downs side, each of those fields has the ability to have 1 large diamond game on it or 2 smaller diamond games. And you'll see that in a few minutes when I get to some of the detail slides. So now we've gone from what looks like 5 diamond fields. Now we've got 20 potential diamond fields that could be used simultaneously. The diamond fields also have soccer field overlays potential on top of that. So now you're looking at 5 full-size fields at Stuart Nelson Park for soccer, plus an additional 4 slightly smaller size soccer fields that would be good for 12 and under U12 soccer, and then 1 on the championship field that would be a full-size soccer field. So now we've got 10 full-size soccer fields essentially. So that really caused us to what looks different and looks like a decrease in the number of fields is actually a substantial increase. So this is a blow up of the Bluegrass Downs portion. They're entering from the bottom of the slide on the right, there where the water is. That will be stormwater detention, wet stormwater detention, that would be captured on the site. You come in there, and that's the entrance to Bluegrass Downs now at the traffic light at 32nd Street, Watermark, Honda, and Chip Wynn. That would be the primary entrance to the facility. You would come in, there would be a large parking area to your right. The grandstand, the existing grandstand will be completely refurbished and would serve as a home base for many of the needs of SFC operationally, concessions areas, restrooms, team check-in areas, and just seating for the championship field and all of that. That would be immediately in front of you and would serve as the kind of the iconic piece of the site that makes this site of the site so unique. You see the road continues on around there south of the 4 diamond fields, and then up towards the top of the slide toward the word process there. We've approximately total site, Bluegrass Downs site and Stuart Nelson Park site, we're looking at about 1,700 parking spaces. Which SFC has run the counts, and they feel like that is more than adequate for their needs. We do have some areas identified for some overflow parking in case that were needed, and so we're trying to take into account all of those things. This is a blow-up of that grandstand championship field amenity zone. You see the grandstand there, the vendor court plaza, just the gathering space for families as they come in, players as they come in, teams to come through the grandstand. That would be the primary entry point to the facility. They would come into the grandstand and then proceed out and go to their designated field, especially on this diamond side of the park. You do see kind of this darker gray line that goes around the outside of the multi-use championship field. That is a gravel, much like the Greenway Trail is through Stuart Nelson Park, a gravel path that would serve as a running trail, an access road that would get to the overflow parking there just north of the championship field. It would also serve as a maintenance road for SFC as they perform maintenance duties through the week and the weekends to keep them off of the main roads. And so we're trying to, again, we met with stakeholder groups in November. We met with runners, cyclists, dog park folks, baseball, softball, just to try to get anybody and everybody that currently uses Stuart Nelson Park or could in the future to try to get some input on what they would like to see. And this access road running trail was actually one of the ideas that came out of that. And so we really were listening to the community and what they needed and what they would like to see. The next slide here is just a close-up of the diamond fields. You see in the middle there, the diamond is a concession restroom building, centrally located, paved parking. We do have fence around the fields to control access to the area and to protect the fields. As far as access and usage, some of those questions are still being worked out. Those are things that we as a design team are not involved in a lot of those, except where we need to place items for access control. We had a 6.5-hour meeting this morning and the afternoon, and we're working through some of these things and have even made some suggested changes to some of these drawings you're seeing today. On the Stuart Nelson side, this is a uniquely shaped site. You've got the Greenway Trail that runs along the old railroad bed along the north side of the site. We do have Stuart Nelson Park Road enters in to the site just at the bottom of the slide where you see Paducah City Commission update. Right above the word city is where Stuart Nelson Park Drive enters currently. So we're maintaining that road. The plan is to improve that road, to make it wider, to accommodate more traffic and make it a more pleasant experience and allow people to keep their mirrors on their cars. The parking on this side is adequate for the soccer complex. We've allotted the large green space you see planned north of the parking is allocated for disc golf to maintain and rework some of the disc golf holes that are directly affected by this project. And again, as a reminder, we did hire on our team at our cost H.B. Clark, the original designer of this disc golf course, because we thought who better to manipulate and redesign the course than the gentleman who designed it in the first place. And so he's been just a great resource for us in helping us to understand disc golf play and what's needed for that. And so the disc golf community, we've been in contact with them and are assuring them that we're listening. And so one of the things that you see here, the vendor court, the entry plaza, and yes, we know entry is misspelled. That was the judge pointed that out last night. Playgrounds for community use and user groups of the sports complex. And one of the things that we're having ongoing discussions about is Stuart Nelson, the history of the park, and Dr. Nelson himself. We've had some initial meetings with stakeholders that we need input from and wisdom from on how best to do this. And so you see there, they're in the middle, kind of where the streams converge, as a Stuart Nelson Memorial. We don't have that design. We don't know what that is. We don't know what that looks like, but we know we need to do it to honor the park's history, to honor Dr. Nelson, and the significance of this park in the community historically, and also do better than what's out there with the historical plaque that was just installed in 2016. So we have plans to do all that. We don't know what that looks like. We actually have another meeting this Thursday night organized by the Paducah Historical Preservation Group that is focused on preservation efforts for African American historical sites in the Purchase area. They've organized a town hall meeting that we'll be at to listen and to provide and to get feedback from that group and that meeting about what they would like to see as an appropriate design response for this. And Commissioner Henderson, thank you for assisting in that process as well. And Corbin Snarden with the NAACP and Brent Leggs have been helpful as well. And Javanta Dawson with Paducah Historical Preservation Group. I just want to thank all of those that have helped us understand this park. One of the things, and let me go back real quick, this is still a public park, especially the Stuart Nelson portion. So we're having even discussions today about how we communicate that, how we make that happen to where this is still accessible to the community, both realistically and just in a way that folks can understand that it is still a public park and how they can use that. And so we're having those discussions even today about how we best can do that. The next slide is just some field dimensions that I won't bore you terribly with, but these fields, this is a typical rectangular field. You see the two diamond overlays, the backstops on each of the bottom left and right corner, the arc of the field, the outline of the outfield fence that would be put in. It would be a temporary fence. It wouldn't, and not like orange construction netting. That is, it'll be much nicer than that. But this is something that's done at facilities across the nation, and something that SFC does quite a bit as well. So you can see that kind of the outline of the field, this total field width, the synthetic turf area of this is about 500 feet, 495 feet and some odd inches. The soccer field is approximately 360 feet in length. The football field is going to be a little bit more than that. So you can see we've still got even space on the ends for some additional warm-up areas and things like that. So you can see the sheer magnitude of these size of these fields. This is a typical diamond field that is in that quad. You see that the potential, the bottom left will be the large field orientation for a large, older team game. The two upper left and bottom right corners would be for smaller, younger children playing, and have two games going on at one time. And then a U12 soccer field oriented generally north-south direction that could be utilized as well for additional soccer games. And you can actually get, potentially additional soccer fields on this with younger age groups that use smaller fields. So there's an opportunity to gain even more soccer fields than this, given the correct tournament organization. And then this will be the championship field that's even larger because it accommodates a full-size soccer field or football field running parallel to the grandstand. So you still have that championship field for soccer and not just baseball, which is one thing we were missing in the master plan concept. And with that, I would be happy to entertain questions.
Where are we in the process?
So right now, we turned over schematic design documents to the owner, SFC, Sports Tourism Commission, City and County, about 3 weeks ago. We are, I think, this week or by Monday, we'll have review comments from the owner back to the design team. We got some of those today in our 6-hour meeting, so we'll be making adjustments to this. Our next step would be design development, which we would go through and refine the design based on these comments, make final design decisions. We've even talked about even today about shifting of some of the fields, even 10 to 15 feet in some directions to gain a little bit more space, to make things align better. And so we're getting into that level of minutia, but that's the important stuff that makes this project work well. And so that's our next step. That'll probably be, I forget what we have allocated for that timeline for design development. Once that phase is through, we'll submit another review package to the owner and SFC for another budget update. That's one of the things they've been working on is a budget update, and I haven't even seen that yet. And so they'll do another review. We'll finalize all decisions, essentially at that point, design decisions. And then our next step will be construction documents, where we'll get into the final drawings that will be used for permitting, bidding, and construction. We anticipate those wrapping up in mid to late fall, getting this out to bid. We've discussed potentially some early site packages, a site bid package that could be some utility installation, grading, overall grading of the site, where we could get things started early while we're wrapping up some of the design drawings and construction drawings. But we're still looking at construction beginning late this year, and then probably looking at an early 2025 opening date. At this point, schedules are challenges, and we know that from previous projects. So, but we're doing our best to streamline as much as we can on the design side so that we can gain time.
Thank you.
The one comment, kind of related, but let's make sure that our documentation, our agreement with the county is properly done so that there can be no confusion regarding sharing of costs, that sort of thing, maybe, 20 years from now when we're all, out of office or whatever, so that just trying to avoid potential problems.
Well,
It just needs to be very clear
that's
in writing so that.
It's in the interlocal agreement. I mean, that's been negotiated and worked through. So we have a document that we think's pretty thorough. So.
It's great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
So Jeff, I know Kevin's here, and just Kevin, so the commission is aware when we're referencing you, if you wouldn't mind to stand up or so they could see who we're talking. And I'll just brag on Kevin and his team, and of course Jeff and his team too. You know, Amy and I have been the city's appointees to the working group, and it's been a pleasure and honor to work with them and to see the professionalism they bring to that, as well as, you know, the county's representation on that. But Kevin, I thank you for being here tonight.
Okay, thank you very much.
I've got one more.
He didn't get to leave the podium yet.
Okay, so let's, I'll go ahead and have the city clerk please read the municipal order.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order Authorizing the Mayor to Execute an Agreement with Mid-States Construction Incorporated in the amount of $1,557,697 for the Robert Cherry Civic Center renovation project."
Is that
Somebody's moving.
Me? So moved.
Second.
Okay.
okay? Amy?
Civic Center. So we are finally here. It's been a very, very long process to get here. Just a quick how we got here. We thought we were going to be doing this in September of last year. Unfortunately, we all know what happened. We had a semi-truck run into the side of the building, which halted our process. But today we have a contract before you for Mid-States Construction. They were our lowest, most qualified bid on the project. It does include the repair work that is supposed to be done, and it also includes replacing the windows. So we kind of scored with both of the alternates that we had included in the project and under budget, so that's even better. Jeff is going to kind of talk through the details of the contract and then also the timeline and what we can expect, and then I've got an update on the insurance piece too. So I'll mention that here at the end, and then we'll take questions.
Okay.
I'm back. So, the Cherry Civic Center bids were received on March 8th, just 3 weeks ago, and just want to kind of give you some information because I think this is exciting to me. So the architect's opinion of probable cost for construction for the renovation initially was $1.8 million and some change. Once the accident occurred, we were contracted by the city to do an assessment of the damage. We generated an opinion of cost for those repairs, which was $264,000 for a total cost of $2.1 million. We, as discussed with Amy and Darren, we decided to break the accident. That may be a bad choice of words. To identify the repairs from the accident as an alternate bid, just so we could track the cost of that. That was the only reason. We knew we needed to accept alternate number one, which was the accident repairs, but it gave us an opportunity to track those costs and see what that number actually was. We did have two additional alternates on the project. One was just for HVAC controls to be coordinated with what the city currently uses in other facilities, and so that was, I'll show you what those bids came in at later. And then we had another third alternate. We knew the windows would be an expense because there are a lot of windows on this building, and so we decided to break that out as an alternate bid number 3, just to give us an opportunity to get the project moving forward without that cost if need be. So the bid proposals received, we received 2. We had 4 general contractors that did receive plans, that did request plans and came to the pre-bid meetings. So we had good interest in it, but ultimately 2 bids were received. One from Mid-States Construction for a base bid of $1.3 million. Alternate bid number 1 was $104,000. Alternate bid number 2 was $0, and that was on both bids. There was no additional cost for that. And then alternate bid number 3 for the windows was $87,000 for a total bid of $1.56 million. Everard Construction from originally out of Illinois, but they've since opened a Kentucky office in the last couple of years, based in Paducah. Their base bid was $1.5 million, $110,000 for alternate 1, $0 for alternate 2, and $73,000 for alternate 3, for a total bid amount of $1.7 million. Both of these bids are under our opinion of probable cost for construction, which in this climate that we're in right now, this was March 8th is a banner day for me. I was so happy that we came in under our opinion of probable cost, because that is difficult to do in this climate. Our recommendation is that the city enter into a contract with Mid-States Construction, accept their bid proposal in the full amount of $1.57 million, and enter into contract with them. Kind of a project timeline. Our next steps would be to approve the contract tonight, provide notice of award to Mid-States tomorrow, and then a notice to proceed dated April 17th. We've got spring break is rolling up upon us very quickly, and I know that Logan Gay from Mid-States Construction is going out of town next week, and he's asked if we could push that off for a week or 2 weeks, and allow him to get back and be ready to get moving as soon as we issue notice of award. So we, after talking with Amy, we agreed to that. We've allowed 210 consecutive calendar days for construction per the contract, and that puts substantial completion at November 13th, 2023, and then final completion 30 days later at December 13th, 2023. And so we hope this will be a great Christmas present for the city and the community to have this facility once again online and available for use by the community. It's been hard to drive by it so many days and see it closed for renovation, and knowing this day is coming, so this is exciting. And I think Amy's got an insurance update.
Yeah, great.
So we have been working with the trucking company's insurance, and they are still in the approval process. There were some discrepancies. They went ahead and sent out one of their own engineers to look at the site, and they're working through that, working towards a resolution. So we don't have any indication that there will be any issues. I've talked to the risk manager, and we both agree that we should proceed and just treat the insurance as a reimbursement for our initial cost for those repairs.
So the insurance reimbursement will reduce the 1.5?
Yes, because it will pay for the repairs.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And just to kind of explain why the repair bids were so much lower than our estimate, we estimated allowing for the repairs to be done without the renovation project, because that's what the insurance company needed to repair the building as if there weren't a renovation project going on. So that number is higher because that includes a contractor mobilization just in that number, but because this was lumped into an alternate bid, contractors already mobilized on site. So that was why that reduced. It looks so much different. We didn't just throw a high number out there. That's just why that's so much different. So, any questions on this?
None for me. I'm just glad the day's here.
We are too.
And we can get moving, so.
We are too.
Thank you very much. Thank both of you.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, I'm going to ask any discussion. Are we good?
Good.
Call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, the next municipal order is the adoption of our 2023 commission priorities. And Michelle is here.
Lindsay, you want to read it
You want
first?
me to read it?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, please read the municipal order.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt a municipal order entitled, "A Municipal Order of the City of Paducah, Kentucky, Adopting the City Commission Priorities for the Calendar Year 2023."
So moved.
So-
Sorry, I thought it was.
So moved.
Second.
Michelle.
Everybody's excited to get there.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager, and City Clerk. I'm excited to be here tonight to talk about our 2023 Commission priorities. And I always like to go over an overview of the stages. So we had the Board of Commissioners priority setting session, and you all met with the leadership team. So now we're into the priority adoption phase. And what we're asking you to do tonight is to adopt the 10 commission priorities and the 5 continuous improvement items. But I'm going to talk through some of the tactics that we've written down for each commission priority and get your feedback on that to make sure we appropriately translated the goals you want to see done this year. And then we'll move into implementation, and that looks like incorporating the commission priorities into the budget process, into departmental operation plans. It really gets embedded in our organization. And then, of course, we have communication and reporting throughout the whole year. So with that, we're really looking for feedback on the tactics tonight.
Okay.
Okay? So this is a little bit difficult to read on the report. You have it in front of you. I can zoom in a little bit too. So first of all, we have bike lanes and trails. And what we really heard from the board is the win would be having a master plan updated this year for the bike lanes and the trail. So we have engaging with consultants for the Greenway Trail Master Plan update and also the bike master plan. And then the planning director talked about really wanting to develop a bicycle-friendly framework that would inform the master plan update. And also we wanted to make sure that community engagement was incorporated throughout the whole process. So those are the 3 tactics we've developed. Any feedback on that one?
Not for me. I mean, I think it's spot on, but
Okay. City facilities was definitely a theme this year with the directors, and so this has made it as a top priority. We've really focused on prioritizing and implementing the maintenance projects that are in that city facility study. Also developing that capital improvement plan that will incorporate both the maintenance projects and the need for new buildings that will help inform the budget needs in the upcoming year and then continuing to fund those. So it's really about the planning of it and continuing to fund it.
yeah, I'm just happy that, I'm happy that it was a common theme among the departments, and I'm glad that we, focused on this as one of our priorities, so.
Okay. Next, we have community growth in downtown. I'll start with community growth. So really what we heard is this is a concentrated business recruitment effort for businesses outside of the scope of GPED and Sprocket. So an example, we talked about some retail and grocery stores. And then we also talked about enhancing the remote worker recruitment program. They're doing some different type of marketing or specialized vendor because we only had 6 complete as of February, and we still have some additional budget. So really trying to promote this program and get remote workers to move to Paducah.
Yeah, I just think we need to build out the tactics on these.
Okay.
It's 2 different themes. One is remote worker, which is kind of a continuation of a program that we started during the pandemic, but the other one is a business recruitment effort. And I think about grocery stores or the kind of stores that we want here in the community, and we're going to need some help doing that. We're going to need a plan to do that. So, there is a vendor out there that we may get a chance to look at on remote workers. We talked about it in the retreat, but as far as the businesses, if I hear one more time, we need to target.
It was a topic last Thursday night.
It's a topic everywhere. It's the number one topic in the community, so I understand. But in order to focus on it, we're gonna have to get a plan together, so.
Just so I understand, do you want us to revise this tactic to be a little bit more specific of what we want to get done this year, or are you okay with that language?
No, I think it's okay. I just,
Okay.
I think I think the devil's in the details.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, it's good
Yeah.
to say that concentrated business recruitment effort, but
Yeah.
how are we going to do that?
Yeah. Well, and you're right. We try, where we really excel is when the tactics are focused and very specific and give clear direction to the team. So you're spot on. Okay. Moving on to downtown, this is quite a large one. This has a number of tactics. So the first we talked about is really supporting the Main Street Board. Our planning director was talking about how they recently had a strategic planning session and have set their own goals. So, the mayor, and we talked about in that meeting how they're really critical to making sure we have a thriving downtown. So making sure that they're supported and working towards their goals. The next bullet, this really came in as a conversation about making sure that underutilized buildings are, fully, this is being a little redundant here, but fully utilized at full capacity, So when I was talking with the planning director, he said that there's a subcommittee of the Main Street called Economic Vitality Committee, and this is something they've actually been tasked with this year, is to figure out what type of city incentives, different programs, different events that we can have downtown to really highlight those buildings and get more people in them. So that's how we've characterized that specific tactic.
Are you talking about empty buildings or just underutilized buildings?
I think more of the underutilized, I guess I would say both. Because this came into some of the bigger ones, like the Regions Bank building and those types of buildings, but as well as some other storefronts. I don't know, city manager, if you want to add any.
Yeah, I mean, when you drive by at street level and you see a vacant storefront, it's real easy to think that building is totally vacant. But in reality, most of our buildings downtown have some, are underutilized, where they do have occupancy, just not full occupancy. So where this tactic comes in is that addressing both those that are fully vacant and those that have opportunities to achieve full occupancy. And that's where on the Main Street, in that vitality piece from the Main Street board, they're going to look at that aspect, is my understanding.
Yes.
Of how you achieve both.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this language was tough to get the right wording in, and we went round and round on it.
I look forward to hearing what they have to say.
Sure.
That subcommittee, and I mean, what they think. I mean, because I would think that, they need to do some research, some legwork.
Yes.
So.
Yep. So we also have working closely with Wayland Ventures to meet the construction milestones related to City Block. And then the build grant also came up, so we have a tactic of continuing that design process and pursuing additional funding for the riverfront project. And then finally, we have focusing on the beautification of downtown through upgraded amenities. So this would be, we're talking about upgrading trash cans, benches, that type of thing. And then also the landscaping and looking for some flowers.
Just get some planters.
That's right.
Just get some
Pansies.
pansies. Pansies.
That's right. That's right.
That's in the works.
All right.
They'll be in by
Very good.
July.
We'll keep it going.
It did.
So next we have housing and minority inclusion. On housing, there's kind of two continuations, then a couple new ones, which we've actually already talked a little bit about tonight, some of the specific tactics. But the first one is working with the county to update the comprehensive plan. I'm going to go to that last bullet, which actually talks about increasing density by filling city-owned lots. This is through our surplus property program. But those two bullets are new, and this is that discussion about how we coordinate between staff and elected officials, and then also the public education we have around new developments. So we have in here enhancing staff and elected officials' communication, and then also focusing on public education, which the city manager was actually talking about. We're already working on some information we can put out on the website. Is there anything else you'd like to see under housing? Does that capture the discussion?
I think the comprehensive plan is really important. I know that's a process. I don't know, how long will that take? That won't get done this year, will it?
It's 18 months.
That's
Okay.
a number I had in my head too.
So I know that I've seen some proposals for housing incentives,
Yes.
that came from planning. I guess they're not, I guess we need to talk about them. They're not ready to to talk about just yet, but that's important to get those out there on the street and to educate people about them.
I would also think under housing, maybe collaboration with developers, builders should be in there as
I
well.
thought it was, yeah. We've had that in there before,
Yeah.
recruitment.
Where?
Under housing,
And it
working with
used to be in there.
developers.
Yes, it was last year, that type of language of
I
how
think
we
it
work
should
with them.
be.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and in a way, well, in a way, it kind of fits into the second bullet point. I mean, you know, one of the things that we talked about was making sure that we got information early on
Yeah.
some of the developments that were
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
discussion stages.
Right, right.
So,
But I think this tactic would be more work with recruiting
Yeah,
developers.
versus communicating.
okay. I'll go with that.
Okay. I will definitely add that tactic, and we have language we've used last year, so we'll start with that. With minority inclusion, we have 4 pretty specific tactics here. So the first is continuing to support the Paducah Diversity Advocacy Board. We're working with them on some training for city leaders and maybe some community training. We also have in here to repopulate the Human Rights Commission and then explore providing the appropriate staff support. We have implementing the employee-wide survey with Murray State. We talked about that initial training really being a launching pad. Well, what we found is this feedback will actually help us develop some specific goals and trainings for the organization. So we're really looking forward to the survey going out, getting some information back, and then figuring out where we really want to focus our efforts on DE&I within the city organization. And then we also talked about, you all talked about wanting to adopt a diversity statement, so we will help you draft, coordinate, whatever we need to do.
Yeah, the PDAB board has asked us to adopt a diversity statement, and I think it makes perfect sense for us to do that. It's not as easy as it looks.
No.
You know, there's a million of those out there, and so I think we need to, scope one, shape one that really sort of fits us, our particular situation. So that's going to take some work. And then, repopulating the Human Rights Commission, that's a big effort. I mean, we've got an ordinance out there. There's nobody, all the people have rotated off the board, so there's no board members, so we're going to have to repopulate the board. We need to update our ordinance, so there's a lot of work, and our target is July 1 on that. So we got lots of work to do on that, so, but we're making progress. Okay?
On to the next one. So this page actually has quite a few new items for the commission priorities this year. First, we have neighborhoods, and this was really about kind of supporting grassroots efforts in the neighborhoods and knowing that they have city support. So one tactic is really supporting the start of neighborhood watch meetings, or going to neighborhood meetings and initiating neighborhood watches throughout the community. I know we've already held one in the police department, and I think Commissioner Henderson met with Roland Town. And then we also added a tactic here for going to these meetings and educating them on support services like Tyler 311 app, curbside recycling, just some different things throughout the city. So I think police has a goal to get out to all the neighborhoods this year, and we're going to see how we can team up with them to really talk about city services. And Chief Laird said that he did that during the meeting. So that will be a goal this year, to get out to all the neighborhoods.
One thing I'd like to mention, I don't know, when the timing of it and how we would orchestrate it, but, we have all these neighborhoods, and do we have signs identifying the neighborhoods?
I
don't know how expensive that-
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I think it probably varies by each neighborhood, but not many that I can think
I
of.
wonder if we could get some consistent signs. I mean, I know it's easy, it's harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
And we've never really identified exactly like where South Side starts. And
Right.
But we have all like Roland Town and, And, I mean, all these different
Yeah.
little neighborhoods, and I don't, we could talk about that, through the process here, I just think, neighborhood identity, I think that's, it's not the end all, but it's certainly a good
Yeah.
start,
I agree.
It would help to identify them, and
Yeah.
there is like a map that kind of has all of them on there.
It's more work, but.
Yeah, well, that's, something we can definitely talk about throughout the meetings too. So, okay.
Okay.
Okay, on quality of life, this has a lot of tactics, so I want to make sure we're representing what you all would like to see get done this year. So the first is evaluating the prohibited noise code and then evaluating the enforcement opportunities for those. So this is what came up about like motor vehicles, music, that type of thing. So we'd be looking at the ordinance, and those are difficult to enforce, but seeing what we could do there. Updating the sign ordinance, and then we've talked about collaborating across all departments so that all employees are trained and know how to pick up signs that are in violation of the ordinance. And this next one, Commissioner Henderson was very passionate about, of raising public awareness and city employee awareness about the importance of mental health. Mental health month is coming up in May, and he's already asked what we started to do.
Well, I know there was a call this week
Yeah.
about an official proclamation by Leanne, who was actually here earlier, and I know
Yes.
she reached out to Bev to start that process.
Ever since Commissioner Henderson brought that up, it seems like I see something about it every day. Nationally,
Yeah.
regionally, focused on mental health. And, the hard thing is exactly what do we do? What can we do
Yes.
to make a difference? We can raise awareness.
Yeah.
And so that's part of it. But I'm like that it's in there. And then the other thing, I remember Commissioner Smith was talking about, I guess the sign ordinance, but really just code enforcement in general and consistent code enforcement. And this is something that's really hard.
Yeah.
Across the city, we've got code and, if you enforce things too much, and people start complaining because you're raining on their life, and then you're too lax,
Yeah.
and people are saying, these people got to clean up my yard.
right.
Or clean up their yards, and so it's not easy. But trying to be consistent across that, I think, is something that we should shoot for, and try to do better.
I'll make a comment. There probably was maybe 40, 50 signs for pressure washing that was put out over the last weekend. I passed them coming down here, and they're clearly on right-of-way. So I don't want this to say, well, we got to do this, we got to do this. If we know something that is a violation right away, I think we need to go on and address it. I think part of our problem is we haven't done much with it. And so we've allowed bad habits to creep in, and it makes it more difficult, and it trashes up the way the city looks. And it's not a good sign when people come in, like we got the quilt show coming in. It looks junky, in my opinion, so.
I agree.
And, it could involve personnel. Do we have enough personnel, the right personnel?
But I think that if we got in the habit of, if you see something that's clearly, you pick it up, and after a period of time, people will stop putting things out, because those signs cost, I guess, I ran for election, so $7 or $8 a piece. So people will stop wasting their money on it. And I don't think it's a huge effort.
Maybe we as commissioners and the mayor, we carry a little badge, and when we see it, we go pick them up.
Yeah, truly, I see some, I'll pluck them up on city right away. So, and that's something I guess citizens could do as well.
So one question I have, maybe I went a little bit too specific. Would you like to see maybe those first two tactics kind of pulled up to this higher level of the consistent code enforcement and that type of conversation, instead of specifically calling out the different ordinances we want to work on? Or do you want something in addition to?
I think there's an issue with that sign ordinance, or that's what enforcement's told me. So I think we do need to focus on that. as a more global thing, because there's a lot of different facets of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we
My
are,
opinion.
Commissioner, to that point. We continue to have dialogue with legal in regards to, very clearly, if it's in the right-of-way, it's out of compliance. The other areas that are gray. And so we will, hopefully in the very near future, we'll be bringing an update to our sign ordinance for consideration of how we can address that, but also stay within the legal confines of some of the recent Supreme Court decisions around that matter. And then to the tactic that Michelle mentioned in relationship to, we're already beginning the dialogue about how all departments, can, facilitate the assistance instead of just one department be solely responsible for that amongst all their other.
It's great.
Okay. I don't think it needs anything necessarily more right now. We
Okay.
can just enhance it, as we go forward, so.
Okay. The only other thing I wanted to mention is that final bullet, this is something I know the mayor's been very passionate about, is implement a community-wide event focused on beautification and kind of a litter pickup. So Lindsay and I are actually talking about that today, and it could potentially be staff-supported, so we'll start to look at what that could be this year.
That would be good. That's a big effort.
Yeah.
Are you talking about that every Sunday all summer, or, okay?
No, I don't think so.
And you're going to lead it.
I mean, I attended several of them, and it was hot. And,
Yes, yes. No, I think it more.
I mean, it was a
maybe-
great project.
Yes,
I mean,
it's
I'm really glad we did it, and I really enjoyed it because we met a lot of people.
I think
It's a
there's
lot of
some consistency, I mean, we got to start somewhere. I mean, I think if we could get it into our culture a little bit, it would be helpful. But it takes work.
Maybe we should order a cigarette butt costume and take turns wearing it around for litter pickup.
While we're picking up signs.
So,
All right, I'm writing that down.
yeah, we had, in the first community I had the pleasure of working in Henderson, they actually had a civic beautification, and the leader of that, her costume was anti-litter. And so she wore all this litter.
That's funny.
And that was a big, and then, of course, the school.
Clever.
Yeah. So there's some precedent, and we can work on it.
Business license, they're paying payroll taxes, that type of thing. So we'd work with finance on reviewing those policies and procedures and finding, additional opportunities for auditing and enforcement. We also talked about exploring a partnership with the county, really around the occupational license enforcement. And then we wanted to put in there continuing to be proactive through meetings like Kickstart meetings. And then I know we have a small business resource guide, so how we can help people be compliant up front and so that it's proactive and it's not always on the, tail end.
Yeah, I think this is a good start. I mean, we're going to have to build out the tactics here and, stay focused on it, so.
Okay, and then finally, we have Southside enhancements, so this is a continuation. We worked with the planning director closely to develop these tactics, and he talked about developing a strategic action plan for the Walter Jeton neighborhood, and this is really, springboard off the Dunlap project. He also talked about continuing to engage and support the Southside Steering Committee, bringing those housing incentives forward to get those adopted and implemented, also business incentives. And then this is new, I had not heard this before, but they're talking about creating gateways to the south side through public art. So I think that could be a really neat addition to these tactics. Okay, and then just
think we're good.
finally, we have the continuous improvement items, so we have 5. They are stormwater, the joint city-county sportsplex, 911, protecting the key historical and cultural resources, and then just continuing to always try to be more efficient, whether it's in the development process or with all city departments.
Okay,
Thank you. Great.
everybody,
Very
you all
nice.
good on these?
Yes.
All right. Well, we'll make a couple of changes and then we will get implementing.
Thank you.
Okay, can we ask the city clerk to call roll?
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Thank you, Michelle. Okay, we have 4 ordinances to adopt tonight. They were read 2 weeks ago, so I'll ask the city clerk to please read the first one.
A proposed motion that the Board of Commissioners adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2022-06-8740 entitled, an ordinance adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky annual operating budget for fiscal year July 1, 2022 through June 30, 2023, by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. This ordinance is summarized as follows. Amend the annual budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30, 2023 as follows. Transfer $156,870 from Fleet Trust Fund balance to account number 7100-0210-540050 Fleet Trust Budget.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this one? Okay, I'll ask you please call roll.
Aye.
Commissioner Guess? Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, you can read the next one.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending ordinance number 2022-06-8740 entitled, an ordinance adopting the City of Paducah, Kentucky annual operating budget for fiscal year July 1, 2022 through June 30th, 2023, by estimating revenues and resources and appropriating funds for the operation of city government. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the annual budget for fiscal year beginning July 1, 2022 and ending June 30th, 2023, as adopted by ordinance number 2022-06-8740, be amended by the following reappropriations: increase revenues and expenditures for the CDBG fund by $200,000.
So moved.
Second.
So this is the grant for who?
This is the annual one that goes to the, and I just drew a blank.
Four Rivers.
Four Rivers, thank you.
Rivers.
I was trying
Thank
to say
you.
Merriman, but I went Four
Okay,
Rivers.
yeah, okay,
It's a requirement of the CDBG program.
yep. We all good?
Good.
Call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Can read the next one?
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance accepting the bid of Jim Smith Contracting Company LLC for the City of Paducah's 2023 through 2024 street resurfacing program and authorizing the mayor to execute a contract for same. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the City of Paducah accepts the bid of Jim Smith Contracting Company LLC for the City of Paducah's calendar years 2023 and 2024 street resurfacing program with the option of a one-year renewal agreement upon mutual agreement of both parties, said bid being in substantial compliance with the bid specification and advertisement for bids as contained in the bid of Jim Smith Contracting Company LLC of February 16th, 2023, and authorizes the mayor to execute a contract for the following prices: for resurfacing, bituminous surface base, $103 per ton; milling texture, $60 per ton; shoulder constructions, $50 per ton; for pavement markings, for paint 4-inch line, 55 cents per linear foot; paint 12-inch stop lines, $1.20 per linear foot; for 24-inch stop lines, $2.10 per linear foot; for straight arrows, $50 each; turn arrow, $50 each; combination arrow, $90 each; 8-inch crosswalks at 75 cents per linear foot; paint for school, $70 each; railroad crossing, $230 each; stop, $70 each only; $70 each; handicap symbol, $70 each; 4-inch parking lot lines, 65 cents per linear foot; 4-inch line, $1.40 per linear foot; 12-inch stop lines, $8 per linear foot; 12-inch stop lines, 24-inch stop lines, $16 per linear foot; straight arrow at $150 each; turn arrow at $150 each; combination arrow at $250 each; 8-inch crosswalks at $5 per linear foot; school at $295 each; thermo railroad crossings, $850 each; stop, $225 each, and only $225 each; equipment rental, for small excavator, $165 per hour; medium excavator, $195 per hour; excavator with mulching head, $235 per hour; skid steer loader, $135 per hour; dump truck tandem, $100 per hour; dump truck triaxle, $115 per hour; motor grader medium, $195 per hour; small dozer, $175 per hour; medium dozer, $195 per hour; laborer at $83 per hour; vibratory roller small, $170 per hour; and a vibratory roller medium at $170 per hour.
So moved.
Second.
Before we vote, I just want to make one point here. Rick's not here, but, one of the things I remember him saying 2 weeks ago was, prices are up 30%, and if we allocate the same amount of money as we did last year, then we get 30% less work done. And so I think that's something that we need to stay focused on during the budget discussions. You you probably are,
Yep.
but it's just something that kind of weighed on me, stuck with me, and so.
It's already been talked about, and so
Great.
we are
Thank you.
in the process.
Okay, call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, read the final ordinance for adoption.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to adopt an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Section 2-278, Educational Incentive Plan of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Section 2-278, subsection F, to increase educational incentive payments as follows. Associates from $50 to $75 per month, bachelors from $75 to $112.50 per month, and masters from $100 to $150 per month.
So moved.
Second.
Everybody good on this one?
Yep.
We talked about it at length, so please call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Okay, we have 3 ordinances to introduce tonight. The first one is our agreement between the city and our local firefighters. And Stephanie is here to tell us about it. I'll ask the city clerk to please read it first.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Paducah and Professional Firefighters of Paducah, Local 168, International Association of Firefighters. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance authorizes the mayor to execute an agreement with the Professional Firefighters of Paducah, Local 168, International Association of Firefighters. This agreement will become effective July 1, 2023, and expire on June 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager, City Clerk. Negotiations with the fire department began on January 11th. We had 5 sessions and ended on February 21st. Our focus was on recruitment, but we had a little bit more emphasis on retention with this contract. We added items like specialty pay, longevity, cost of living adjustments at 6, 4, and 3 over the next 3 years. A few other items, we increased the clothing allowance, vacation time, and incentives for health and safety agility test. There were a few other, we added in some just language updates and changes, as well as updating it to include Juneteenth and the holidays. Any questions?
I just want to, I know for both, you're going to present both of them, but really well done. I mean, I know that used to take really long time, and we would hear about things, and so I think that must have gone very smoothly, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, now I'll just add something also. I mean, I'm proud of, the relationship that we have with both our firefighters and police unions, and the work they do in the community. And, nothing's ever perfect. We have, disagreements at times, but we always work through them. And I think the relationship here in the community with both of those is exemplary, so.
It was a pleasure and honor to represent the city during those. They were very professional. It went well.
Yeah,
Excellent.
And to, this year, a change from recent past is that as our team got together before and talked with management and stuff, Stephanie and both chiefs took the lead in those negotiations efforts and carried that through. And then we had the dialogue, in the interim. And so, again, echo, Commissioner Wilson's sentiment on that. Really proud of our management team that took the lead in that and did those.
Great.
Okay, so we have another ordinance introduced. You can just stay up there, Stephanie, and I'll ask the city clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute an agreement between the City of Paducah and the Paducah Police Department Bargaining Union. This ordinance is summarized as follows, that the mayor is hereby authorized to execute an agreement and other associated documents between the City of Paducah and the Paducah Police Department Bargaining Unit. This agreement shall be effective from July 1, 2023 to June 30th, 2026.
So moved.
Second.
Good evening again. I won't hold the
You can
record of
dispose of
3
that.
tonight. Just 2 up here. So police negotiations began on January 18th. We had 3 sessions with police, and they were finalized on February 16th. Again, our focus was on recruitment, but a little more emphasis on retention. We increased their specialty pay and added a few more different types of specialty positions, such as a language translator. We added longevity to the contract and cost of living adjustments at 6%, 4%, and 3% over the next 3 years. The new agreement will increase clothing allowance, the educational incentives, specialty pay, and contractual off-duty rates. We are very fortunate in our community to have well-trained public safety first responders. And this was with police and fire. It's nice knowing them and knowing who we have representing our community in those positions.
Well, I like the fact that we focused on retention, because I know that in talking with both chiefs, I mean, when we lose experienced personnel, I mean, the retirement program, in Kentucky has changed over time. Some are on the old plan. The new plan is, is not as attractive. And so trying to get people to stay. I know people aren't going to stay forever, but when people check out right at 20 years or their first opportunity, I think it hurts. Depends on the role and exactly what they're doing. I mean, some people are more easily replaceable than others, but sometimes we lose experience. I mean, it hurts. So
I'll just say congratulations again, and I echo the statements that we've made. I'm very proud of the first responders that we have, and when when you utilize them, you see how important they are, and then when you see them helping people, it just makes me personally proud and proud for the city that we have such a great departments. So thank you, congratulations on
Absolutely.
completing the contract negotiations.
It is something to be proud of.
great job, Steph. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, we've saved the best for last, I think. So I'll ask the city clerk to please read the next ordinance that we're introducing.
A proposed motion of the Board of Commissioners to introduce an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 106, Section 106-180 definitions and 106-184 deductions and withholding of license fees by employer to file returns and pay license fees to the city, due date to file returns and pay license fees of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Kentucky. This ordinance is summarized as follows. This ordinance amends Chapter 106 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Paducah, Sections 106-180 and 106-184 regarding electronic filing requirements for payroll processors. This ordinance amendment will require payroll processors who administer and process the payroll of 6 or more employers per quarter to submit the returns through an electronic means.
So moved.
Second.
Welcome, Stephanie.
Good evening, Commissioners, Mayor, City Manager, and City Clerk. I want to introduce myself. I'm not sure I've had the opportunity to meet everyone individually. I'm Stephanie Millay, the Revenue Auditor in the Finance Department. So, like Lindsay said, this ordinance would require payroll companies. So if you're a business and you outsource your payroll to a third-party processor, that processor submits quarterly returns to us in a bulk batch. Currently, we have about 2,700 payroll accounts that report to us quarterly. So if you're a revenue technician keying those in, you're keying about 10,800 a year.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot. So if we implement this, it will allow the requirement to get in the software company's development queue. So we will sit down with Tyler and the payroll company and develop an electronic file that they can submit to us electronically. We upload it into Munis. It creates the bills, pays the bills, stores the data, and removes data entry to maybe 10 minutes. We're already doing something similar with our property tax payments from mortgage companies, so it will be very similar to that. We estimate that this will reduce payroll data entry by 25%. It does not change any time needed for business license, payroll for other companies who, if you're a company and you have a designated payroll department or person, that company can still send in a paper form and a check at this time. Property tax, insurance premium tax, or any other remittance that we have, that won't change.
Do we have any estimates on man-hours saved? I mean, I heard 25%, but you haven't really run those numbers.
There are 4 people in finance who are capable of data entry when these quarterly things come in. It probably takes 2 to 3 people to get through all payroll processors. We have about 10 to 12. Once we started on this project, we kept up with who is a processor that's reporting to us. So we have a list that we will engage once this is passed. We're talking about maybe 4 days a quarter. So 8-hour days times 4 times a quarter.
Yeah. I mean, this is, and according to John, Stephanie's the one that identified and came up with this idea, so she gets to present tonight. But kudos to you, and I think it fits right into, it's a continuous improvement this year, but, our continued efforts to improve operational efficiencies, and I think this is an example of what we should be looking at in all our departments, whether it be, electronic improvements, or whether it be any way that we can do more work with less people, or people can be more efficient so they can work on other things. And so it really sets a good example for the entire organization.
Well, we're hoping to free up data entry time to focus on revenue equity.
There you go. Right answer.
Great job.
What's your name again?
But yeah, Mayor, you did rightfully point it out and recognize Stephanie's commitment to this effort. And, again, kudos, Stephanie. But John was so confident in her ability, he went on vacation later to.
He's in Florida.
That's right.
Yeah, he's not sweating it at all. So great job, congratulations, and so we'll look forward to the implementation.
Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you for being here. Okay, that's the end of our of our agenda. Any comments from City Manager?
None this evening, Mayor.
Board of Commissioners, anything additional? We do have an executive session. So I'll ask our city clerk to please read it.
A proposed motion that the board go into closed session for discussion of matters pertaining to the following topics: issues which might lead to the appointment, dismissal, or disciplining of an employee as permitted by KRS 61.810 subsection 1F.
So moved. Second.
Call roll.
Commissioner Guess?
Aye.
Commissioner Henderson?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Wilson?
Aye.
Mayor Bray?
Aye. Is there somebody here that's got public comments?
I didn't get a form.
Sure, make it quick because we're out of session.
Regular session.
I'm usually pretty brief. Jonathan Yerke, 727 North 25th Street, concerning the commission priorities and the quality of life in specific. It was mentioned about the litter control, that sort of thing, as part of the beautification. And litter control is one of the things that I've been round and round about with trash pickup. And since trash pickup has been moved to the street from the alleys where it was designed originally. Litter has gotten completely out of control. So the city is working against itself by rolling that out to other areas. Could be contained much more effectively. But in addition to that, I would like to encourage more people to simply walk and pick up trash as they go, which is what I do most days of the week, is have a grabber and take a bag from Kroger or wherever, whatever plastic bag you got handy, and just pick up trash wherever I go. And that doesn't fix everything, but if we had a number of people doing that, it would significantly help. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jonathan. And I just want to comment, I mean, of course, I got to know Jonathan and his wife, when we made the change, the policy change, and we took our trucks out of the alleys over there, and he makes an excellent point, because those cans are out in the street, and sometimes people don't roll them back, and they need to roll them back. I mean, that's basically what the ordinance says, and so this really comes under the area of kind of enforcement, or, how do we, when we got people out of sync, how do we, control's the wrong word, but, incentivize, get people to, do what they need to do, in order to drive down some of this. So, it's something we will be discussing. So, thank you for being here. Okay, we're out of session.
And there is no expectation of official action when we come out of tonight.